And this project here is a big goal of ours for 2026 here, and kind of going to take the rest of the year to um, really develop with some input from the public, from other city departments, and from a professional team here of outside consultants. So we're really here to talk about trees and talk about the urban forest here in Bozeman. And particularly with these public meetings, this is one of four coming throughout the next few months. We really want to get some feedback from the public. And, I know as your city forester what I'm looking for and some of the nitty-gritty industry details, but we want to hear from the community perspective as well. And how do you value trees? How do you think we're doing in town? What do we need to work on and what's important to you? So we have a big group here, and we're going to run through kind of an overview of the plan. And I'm going to pass it over to the team here, and we'll move through this presentation today.
All right, Alex, you introduce yourself on this list here. Mitch, you're next. You want to introduce
Okay,
yourself?
absolutely. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Mitch Overton, and I'm the director of the Bozeman Parks and Recreation Department. And I'm really looking forward to this process. And again, just really appreciate the public participation.
And hi, everyone. My name's Josh Elliott. I work for DJ&A. We're a Montana-based company. And we're partnered with Planet Geo, and so there's a few of us from both DJ&A and Planet Geo on this call. I'm managing the project from the consultant side of things, and we've got Mila Kelly's not here, but she's an important part of our team as well. And let's see, I'll pass it to Hannah.
I'll pass it back to Mila first. She's here. Go ahead,
Oh,
Mila.
Great. Hi, everyone. Yeah, thanks for the introduction, Josh. My name's Mila Kelly. I joined a minute late, so sorry to be a little tardy. I am here in Bozeman. Have been in a Bozeman resident for 25 years or so, and have a background in forestry and in project management, and I'm here to support our team. And over to you, Hannah.
Thanks, Mila. Hi, everybody. I'm Hannah Coons. I'm an environmental scientist with DJNA, and I'm also a certified arborist. And my main role within this process is to support Josh how he needs to and kind of be that bridge between DJNA and Planet Geo and the city as we get through this development and update process and make sure everything that needs to be in the plan is in the plan when we finalize it at the end of the year.
and Matt.
Hey everybody, I'm Matt Urmson. I'm an urban forestry planner with Planet Geo, certified arborist, track specialist, wildfire mitigation specialist, and water efficient landscaping and tree pest and disease management. And I'm mostly focusing on the inventory analysis, canopy assessment, and vulnerability assessment to help make recommendations to keep Bozeman's urban forest strong.
All right, thanks everyone. And before we dive into too many more details, I just want to say that at a very high level, the goal of this whole process is to develop a document that guides the city in ways that help ensure Bozeman's urban forest is healthy, robust, and resilient. And these public engagement opportunities, which we'll describe in detail during this meeting, are designed to gather data and input from all of you to help further this goal. And I guess last thing, the format of this meeting is going to be pretty presentation heavy. So we're going to present for probably about 40 minutes. There will be time for Q&A at the end of this, but we really want to just make sure at this early stage meeting that you all understand the process and how you can be involved in the future when we get to those stages of development that require more details and input on things. Okay, I think this one's for you, Alex.
Thanks, Josh. Just kind of a little background here on this process and why we're doing this. So we currently have a plan from 2016, And I think just to provide a quick snapshot, this is broad topic. How are we dealing with taking care of trees in the city of Bozeman? How do we manage the forestry division under Parks and Rec? And how do we interact with the public and other entities? So looking back at a 2016 plan, we're really hitting sort of an end of life. It feels like we've accomplished a lot of the goals in the last 9 years. We're approaching that 10-year timeline, and I really think we're feeling a bit of the strain from increasing our public outreach and increasing the workload that we have across the city. We're feeling that strain, and it really feels poised to overhaul that project and take a fresh look at how we're doing our work and how we're also being a resource for the community.
Okay, so again, high level, the project schedule, I think, Alex, you mentioned that we're planning to wrap this up around the end of the year. But we can think of this in three basic phases here, and we're sort of at the beginning of phase two at the moment. And phase one essentially involved meeting as a small group, most of us on this call presenting here, to kind of define and better understand the scope of this project enough that we could begin to engage the public. So that's right where we are now at the beginning of phase two, and phase two is centered around community engagement and then drafting, creating the first draft of this updated urban forest management plan that incorporates the feedback that you all provide. And then in the final phase, it's just the finalization of this plan, which will involve, among other things, seeking approval from city commissioners. So the process that we're going through involves meetings and coordination among three distinct groups. And so this is how we're thinking of it. The core team, which are pretty much the presenters here today, we will meet regularly and have regular coordination meetings to keep this on track. And then in another group, which is denoted with work sessions here, those are work sessions that our core team will have with the Urban Parks and Forestry Board to make sure they're kept up to speed and informed and have the opportunity to provide input along the way. And then last but certainly not least are the public engagement meetings. We'll go into details about what all opportunities will be provided there, but that is an important piece of this too, where we get input from everyone in the community. And in the end, the plan is intended to have analysis and recommendations in the broad categories that you see here. So community engagement, how the community can be involved, not with plan development, obviously that too, which is what we're doing now, but with improving the urban forest in Bozeman. And so we'll be looking for ideas for how the community can be engaged there. It will include a bunch of details about the tree infrastructure that currently exists, as well as goals for how that might change. A summary of staffing and equipment availability, planning and development integration. So with existing plans that touch on the urban forest in some way. And then looking at insect disease and disaster preparedness in ways that we can identify to help make the urban forest more resilient to those things. Okay, I'm going to introduce these various public engagement opportunities now, and then toward the end of the presentation, I will talk about them in more detail. But so first, there's the Engage Bozeman project page, which I'm guessing many of you have probably discovered already, but that it's live now, and it is a landing page that kind of provides an overview of the project. You'll be able to see documents will be available there. Updates, anything you need to know should be posted there in some way, as well as all of the opportunities for public engagement that we're going to talk about in this meeting will be up there as well. So you don't have to remember or write this stuff down. It'll be posted. And then, as I mentioned, we'll have work sessions with the Urban Parks and Forestry Board. We'll have 5 of those all together. And while those aren't intended to be the main way that we engage the public, but those meetings are um, open to the public. But the main way that we hope to engage folks is through these project-specific public engagement meetings. This is the first of 4 of those. Um, and yeah, again, I'll go into more detail toward the end of this presentation. And in addition to all of that, we'll have 2 meetings with the city commission, one kind of mid-process and the other at the end, to make sure that they are on board and approve of this plan. All right, and then quickly again on the project page on Engage Bozeman, if you haven't found that already, the URL is posted here. You can enter your email address and sign up and get project updates when that page is updated. And you can access project documents there and view key project dates. So I encourage you to check that out if you haven't already. All right, now I'm going to pass it over to Hannah and Matt. We're going to kind of tag team going into some more detail about what this plan is going to include.
Thanks, Josh. Now we're going to get into those core plan components that are being updated or are the major focus of the 2026 plan, which include what Josh discussed earlier: community engagement, tree infrastructure, staffing and equipment, planning and development integration, and insect disease and disaster preparedness. Next slide. So before we get into these components, we do want to cover a few definitions that are integral to the update process and understanding the process. First is canopy coverage. This is the layer of trees, leaves, and branches and stems that cover the ground when you're viewing from above, kind of that bird's eye view of an area. Next is canopy goals. Canopy goals represent the desired canopy coverage produced from the analysis of existing tree canopy coverage and the metrics for annual planning and long-term coverage identified through that analysis process. Tree equity is the idea that all communities and individuals within those communities have equal access to the benefits that trees provide. Heritage trees are trees that have historical, cultural, biological, or ecological significance because of their age, size, or condition. Next, we have vulnerability assessment. This is the use of industry tools, research, and best available data and science to assess the vulnerability of trees and the tree canopy to things like climate change, soils degradation, utility conflicts, and other risks that may exist. This assessment will inform recommendations for the management, preparedness, and future planning of Bozeman's trees. And then finally, we have urban forest resilience. This is the capacity of the urban forest to resist and assist communities in recovering from anthropogenic and natural disturbances. And then all of these definitions will play a major role in the analysis and planning process. So for community engagement, this first component in the plan update includes components like volunteer initiatives, outreach and education, and the strengthening and establishment of partnerships and relationships. Existing volunteer initiatives like Branch Out Bozeman will be reviewed in combination with the analysis process of existing tree infrastructure, which will be discussed more shortly. The identification of additional opportunities that are tailored to the community of Bozeman and its needs will be presented in this section. These opportunities will be used to develop an actionable plan that aligns with the city's objectives and can support the forestry division's work. This ties directly to outreach and education opportunities, which will focus on ways to sustainably expand outreach efforts to inform residents about the benefits of the urban forest and what they can do to help the city reach its goals. This can be achieved by identifying areas for strengthening existing partnerships or potentially establishing new relationships and partnerships. Next slide.
Awesome. All right, so tree infrastructure, the inventory analysis. Here we're looking at the foundation of Bozeman's urban forest, what we have today, and how it's functioning. The city of Bozeman manages an inventory of about 28,500 trees, which is up from 21,000 trees in 2016. And we analyze this inventory through three key lenses, which you can see on the screen there: species diversity, age and size distribution, and condition. Together, those help us understand resilience, maintenance needs, and long-term sustainability. So one lens is diversity, and this includes the 10-20-30 guideline, which helps evaluate whether the forest is overly dependent on certain species or genre. And a key takeaway in Bozeman, it's improved its diversity since 2016, but ash still represents about 22% of the population, and that's kind of a large vulnerability, and we'll discuss that in a little bit. We also looked at age structure, and the inventory shows a relatively young urban forest, which reflects reinvestment and kind of shows those trends of the city replacing ash trees and replanting. But it also means that canopy benefits are still developing, and we're going to be seeing more benefits come in as that urban forest matures. And then finally, we used Relative Performance Index, or the RPI, which assesses tree condition to understand which species are performing above or below the population average. And that helps us identify species that may be good candidates for future planning, others that may warrant caution, and also can pinpoint some areas of immediate maintenance needs. So overall, this analysis is really about understanding what we have, how it's performing, and how that informs management decisions. Next slide, please. All right, so this slide shows how we translate inventory data into management action. Using the inventory, we identify patterns such as maintenance needs, structural issues, and risk, and use that to build proactive strategies around pruning, removals, planting, and species selection. One key takeaway is moving from reactive management toward proactive management using cyclical pruning and risk-based prioritization. The analysis also helped identify workload implications, including where maintenance demand may be outpacing current capacity. So really, this slide is about turning data into actionable work planning to support long-term canopy health and public safety. And that inventory baseline also sets up the canopy analysis on our next slide. So the canopy analysis builds from the inventory and looks at the urban forest from a broader landscape perspective as a whole. So up till now, we've been talking about those 28,500-ish trees that the city manages, but the canopy analysis looks at trees on all property types, including in your backyard, front yard, in open space, pretty much everywhere within city limits. The canopy analysis helps identify where trees are lacking, where planting opportunities exist, and where future investment can be prioritized. It also helps inform tree equity considerations, ensuring canopy benefits are distributed more intentionally across the community and that everyone in Bozeman can experience those benefits, such as shading and beautiful views, flowers. It also helps, and more importantly, it provides the foundation for developing realistic, measurable canopy goals. And this is often a major outcome of an urban forest management plan. So we want to make sure that they're attainable and they're based on Bozeman specific context. Semi-arid environment, we're not going to recommend planting thousands of trees to reach a 40% canopy. It's just not realistic for the city, but we want to make sure there is growth and that it works for Bozeman. So while the inventory tells us about the trees we manage, the canopy analysis helps guide where we want to go or where we want the urban forest to go. Next slide.
Staffing and equipment is the next component of the plan update and includes three sections. First is an in-house assessment, which we're currently in the middle of. We recently completed a staff survey and are reviewing that feedback along with existing policies to identify follow-up interviews with staff. Fleet and inventory and equipment inventory, as well as current staffing capacity, will be reviewed in tandem with the tree infrastructure analysis and identified recommendations to identify adequacy of the current staffing and budget based on anticipated future needs and those associated maintenance recommendations. Next slide. The second component of staffing and equipment is contracting services and will include a review of the current budget and any additional needs, similar to that in-house assessment. Additional needs could include items like contractor assistance with regular maintenance, specific tasks, and/or large work orders. This assessment is also tied directly to the review of the existing budget in relation to anticipated future needs and the capacity of that in-house staffing. Next slide. Finally, maintenance recommendations informed by that staffing and equipment analysis will be site-specific, actionable, and supported by those local data sets. that Matt was talking about earlier. These recommendations will include optimal schedules for things like planting, pruning, and removals, as well as species selection, and are going to be tailored to Bozeman's neighborhoods, climate, trees, and available resources. Next slide. The next component of the update process is planning and development integration. This includes multiple integrated components that tie back to the other core components of the plan update: interdepartmental collaboration, tree protection zones, private property development, a heritage tree program, and an approval process for third-party tree installation will be identified and outlined in this section of the plan. This is some of the data that we're just starting to get into now that we have a good baseline with that initial analysis of the existing tree infrastructure. Combined, these will lead to policy recommendations that will benefit future tree health and processes associated with the trees in Bozeman. Next slide.
All right, vulnerability assessment, pest, disease, disasters, oh my. This slide and this section shifts from what the urban forest is today to what could threaten it over time. So we looked at the infrastructure and then examined key risks to the long-term canopy stability, including pest, disease, invasive species, and climate-related stressors. And on the slide, you can see the key pests and diseases of concern. All of these, if they were to get into the city of Bozeman and left unchecked without management, could cause millions of dollars in damages to the urban forest. And so some risks are immediate, others are long-term, but together they influence resilience, maintenance costs, and canopy sustainability, excuse me. The purpose of this assessment is preparedness, so understanding vulnerabilities so management can be proactive rather than reactive. And in short, this is really about where Bozeman may be vulnerable and how planning can reduce that risk. And just one note, there are some invasive tree species of concern. I would like to say that they had minimal representation within the inventory, though they could have greater representation within the city's overall urban forest. And so that's why we're kind of pointing them out. And some of them, like Russian olive and tamarisk, are known to really drain water supplies. So they're one that we really want to focus on and draw some attention to as we progress through the urban forest management plan. Next slide, please. So EAB, or emerald ash borer, is the most significant near-term biological threat that we've identified for Bozeman. It's not yet been detected in Montana, but it is approaching from nearby states. It's in South Dakota, it is in Oregon, it's in Colorado. It's recently moved up into the Rocky Mountains of Colorado, and for a long time we thought that the mountain range would kind of hold emerald ash borer back. So we need to really start planning. And all this matters because, as I mentioned before, ash trees still make up about 22% of Bozeman's public tree population. The good news is that the city has already made major progress. In 2016, there was an EAB action plan for the city, and they've already reduced the ash population from 40% to 22%, which is a major resilience gain. But untreated emerald ash borer infestations typically lead to near total mortality. So this remains a major canopy and budget risk for the city. And we're just going to continue to build on the EAB action plan. We're going to be creating a new emerald ash borer management plan and a pest disease management plan for the city, along with this new updated UFMP. The message here is that progress has been made, but preparedness remains critical. Next slide, please. All right. And so this slide is really about how climate is amplifying those existing risks. As part of the vulnerability assessment, we look at what the projected climate and weather patterns will be for Bozeman in 50 to 80 to 100 years. Drought and extreme heat are probably the most consistent long-term stressor. Warmer, drier conditions increase stress on trees. They reduce growth and can make trees more vulnerable to pests and decline. And wildfire is still a moderate risk in Bozeman. We live out in the Intermountain West, so we all know about wildfire season, but it is increasing, particularly at the wildland-urban interface. And this is partly a management issue, something we can help prepare for by species selection, fuel reduction, and maintenance can reduce those risks. And then we also have severe storms. These are going to become more episodic, but they test the structural integrity of the urban forest. They expose weak branch structure, deferred pruning needs, and vulnerabilities associated with freeze-thaw cycles and snow loading. So we'll be looking at tree species that can sustain that more as we make recommendations on what to plant today for the future urban forest. And the takeaway is that climate change isn't just introducing new hazards, it's intensifying pressures already affecting the urban forest. Thanks. Next slide.
Okay, thanks, Matt and Hannah. So what they just presented gives you a sense for the different the main categories that we plan to cover in this, and there will be many details that we left out at this stage, but there will be opportunities to, yeah, get into more of that in future meetings. And so, as I mentioned earlier, we've got a variety of engagement opportunities coming up. We've got those work sessions with the Urban Parks and Forestry Board, the um, project-specific public engagement meetings. There'll be 2 virtual ones and 2 in-person ones. We'll have a public survey and a public comment period as well. And I'll talk about all of this in more detail in these next few slides here. So we've already had 2 work sessions with the board. The first one was to get their input on the community engagement plan that we've developed for this project, and are in the process of following right now. And then in work session 2, we um, presented a draft of an outline for the updated urban forest management plan and got board buy-in for that. And coincidentally, that'll be in our next public meeting, that the topic that we get your input on. And I won't talk in too much detail about work sessions 3, 4, and 5, but these are basically all set up during strategic points in the process to make sure the board is informed and has an opportunity to provide feedback. And for the project-specific public engagement meetings, we're obviously having the first one right now. And as I mentioned, the main point of this meeting is to make sure you all kind of understand the process that's just beginning to unfold and how you can be engaged in that. And the next meeting will be in about 3 weeks, so it's coming up pretty quick. And there we will present the outline that we plan to use and get your input on at that stage, or if you think we're missing anything, or make sure that the details that you're concerned about are included in that outline somewhere. And that second meeting will kick off the public survey period. So you'll have, I think, 3 weeks. And I'll talk more about the public survey period and public comment period on the next slide. But yeah, I'll cover that intent here in a bit. The third public meeting will be back to virtual on that one. And that meeting, we will present the draft plan that we've developed and get your input on that. There'll be a public comment period starting at that point that lasts 4 weeks. And then finally, in our last in-person public meeting, we will have an opportunity to review and discuss that draft. Okay, so on the last slide, I mentioned the public survey and public comment period. The public survey it will be available through the Engage Bozeman project page. And it will be initiated, as I said, during that second public meeting, and then about 3 weeks. And then you'll have 3 weeks to complete that survey. Yeah, and so the public comment period, again, that's comments on the draft urban forest management plan. And you'll have 4 weeks to do that following that third public meeting. And so that process will then wrap up in early September for that public comment period. I do want to note that we've received some comments already from interested members of the public, and we are collecting all of those. And anything that we receive during this whole process will be reviewed and evaluated. But it's going to be, I think, easiest for us to make sure we don't miss anything if comments are submitted during these organized periods. But again, you can submit comments at any point. And oftentimes folks in these processes think that, they're not listened to or their inputs not heard. But we do have an organized process where we'll have a public survey summary report that we will prepare, and it's going to include what feedback we received during the first two public meetings as well as during in that survey, and we will have discussions with the board and in our core team about how we want to incorporate those comments and feedbacks. And again, we do really value that. Um, and then similarly with the public comment period on the draft that we prepare, um, we'll review all of that feedback and discuss again with the core team and the board that feedback and how we want to incorporate it. And then as we wrap things up, we will need to get the city commissioners' buy-in. And so there'll be a finalization process that includes a presentation to the commission. And again, that will be at a meeting that's open to the public. And we anticipate that, yeah, that meeting will be in November, and that by December of this year, this plan will be adopted. Okay, so that concludes our presentation, and I might need Emily or Alex to chime in. I think there's a chat feature that participants can use. I am not seeing anything on my end.
Yeah, there is a Q&A where people can type in their questions. I can read them aloud if that's what you'd prefer, and then we can go about answering them.
Yeah, that might work out best.
Okay. We only have one right now, and the first one is where can we find more information for the public meeting on May 18th?
Yeah, so I can handle that and others can add to it, but that should be documented on the Engage Bozeman project page. And if there aren't a lot of details there, there will be soon. I think we haven't figured out it. Yeah, a lot of those details have not been determined yet, but I suspect that in the next week or so, we will have some additional details on that page.
Yeah, I would just add to that we have the basic structure kind of pegged into the calendar and have that on Engage Bozeman. We don't have all those specifics yet of what time each item's going to be. And I think what's probably most helpful is that we have that basic structure out there. And so if you know you can't make a public meeting, maybe you can head to one of the advisory board work sessions to hear about that similar topic. And again, like Josh mentioned before, all throughout the process, we have opportunity for public comment. And I think it's just the best thing we're trying to do here is have a variety of options for people to get involved. But still some details to come.
All right, we have one more question. It says robust was used early in the presentation. Can you please define robust as far as a robust forest and what that means? Stronger in size of tree or size of forest?
Well, since I'm the one who used that word, I could start, unless Alex, you want to do it?
Go for it, Josh. And then if you have a different definition of robust, I'll chime in.
Well, I might skirt the direct answer, but just say that I use that term it's really a relative thing. Um, right? Like we have, say, in terms of tree canopy cover, um, we have a good measurement for what that is now. And an ideal situation might not be achievable in the near future, but we can make it more robust by, creating a plan that helps us get there in a way that it is actually achievable. But it could take a while, but generally, yeah, striving for an urban forest that is, yeah, more robust. Again, I'm using that word without defining it, but I'll let Alex or Matt chime in there.
I would say maybe to me that means it's resilient and diversified. We want to maximize things is what I get out of that statement. So we want a wide variety of trees across different species, across different sizes, well represented in every part of town. That's what robust is to me.
The next question is from Linda. Thank you for your presentation and all the work you have completed so far. I was wondering if you were presented with all the public comments received on trees during the completed UDC process. There was a considerable public comment on the loose language in the tree protections during development. Requests for a heritage tree program and suggestions from the Bozeman Tree Coalition. Are these comments being considered or are we starting all anew?
Well, I wouldn't say that we have all of those comments collated right now. But we certainly have tree protections as a major topic in this plan, as well as heritage tree program. So that's part of our efforts in the background to coordinate with community development and some of the other departments that did work on that. It is one of our end results to not only address those topics, but also come away with amendment language for parts of municipal code that relate to trees. So yes and no, but we don't have an entire itemized list of all those comments. That is an example of something that I could get from community development during development of this plan.
Next question is a goal of this project to determine slash set a reasonable and achievable canopy expansion goal for Bozeman's urban forest?
Go for it, Matt.
Yes, yeah, so that is part of our canopy assessment, who my team member Chris, he was unable to join today. He is doing the full canopy assessment for Bozeman, and then as part of that, creating some canopy goals. Typically, we do incremental or small increases, and we run scenarios for a no net loss, so maintaining Bozeman's canopy as is, and including variables such as emerald ash borer or a loss of the ash trees. And then we increase by one all the way up to about 5% increase for the city. And what that shows us is how many trees would need to be planted each year for each of those scenarios in order to either maintain the canopy or increase the canopy. And we can also break those down by small, medium, or large stature trees and get exact numbers to show the city and help create realistic, attainable goals. And in a lot of these cases, it does require planting, close to 1,000, sometimes 2,000 trees a year. So we also will then make recommendations on how to reach those numbers, whether it's through private tree plantings, city-led tree plantings, business tree plantings. We'll come up with various options and then let the city and the community kind of decide what is the most realistic goal that you guys want to strive for.
All right, next question. You said that public comments outside of the survey would have a summary, but only from the two final meetings. Can all the public comments submitted up to that time be included and summarized?
Yeah, I think the intent there was is we have those two summary reports, one from the survey, which will include comments received basically, during up through and during the first two public meetings. So we'll incorporate those into that first report. And then the second one that covers comments on the draft will include comments received after that point in time, kind of through, yeah, basically through the point where we're finalizing and moving on to phase 3.
What is our tree canopy coverage right now? And when assessing vulnerability, would it be possible to recognize redevelopment action as a potential threat to our canopy coverage?
Yeah, so just in looking at my coworkers' initial assessment, it's about 10 to 12% canopy coverage. I think we're looking at 11 as the city canopy coverage. And for setting those canopy goals, we do have a variable included in the calculations that considers development or hectares, acres of canopy lost each year to development. The industry standard for that is an assumption of about 10 hectares a year lost to development. But we usually tweak that based on the development trends we're seeing within the city and can adjust that number, either increase it or decrease it. And then that impacts the number of trees that need to be planted to reach your canopy goal.
We got a thank you, Alex. And then that would be great, Alex, for collecting and using all the previous comments. And then another question, will the draft include a new vision and mission statement?
So I believe we do have that as part of it, right, Josh? In the rough outline right now.
Hannah?
Yes. Yes, we do. I envision that those will be tweaked as necessary. Like Alex said at the very beginning of the presentation, the timing for this update is great because we're kind of at the end of that 10-year cycle, and the city has met a lot of the goals in the 2016 plan. And so while the vision and mission statements are meant to be broad and community focused for the whole urban forest, if there are ways to update them to be more actionable based on recommendations that are identified through this update process and analysis of new data, they may be updated.
And then how will the plan guide city code revisions?
I'll take first round at this, and if anyone wants to add to it, couple of main items for city code. So forestry division, we kind of live in section 16.05, and that details how we do our operation for how we're planting, pruning, and doing removals for city trees. So there are some revisions in 16.05, and then there's also the impact that we have working with other city departments. That includes planning and development, that includes code enforcement, streets and engineering, other places where trees and infrastructure are sort of living in the same space. So it'll take conversations, I think, with the public and with other city staff to talk about some of these issues that are public concerns and how we can work on better solutions. And then once the plan is completed and has recommendations for what we should do to fix these problems, after the plan's done, we're then working on code revisions and amendments if necessary to Bozeman Municipal Code.
A quick add and clarification there is that DJ&A and Planet Geo are already reviewing existing code. So let's see where our code lies now with trees in both Chapter 16 and 38, the Unified Development Code. And through this process, then identify potential or make recommendations for improvement. Then we will work through our advisory board to put together a package of recommendations for improving our existing code following the plan.
All right, next question. In response to canopy expansion goals, you mentioned planting new trees and accepting loss to development, but will you also be trying to address no net loss through education, incentives, strengthen development codes, etc.?
Yeah. So I just want to clarify the variable there about loss to development isn't so much that we want to accept it, but that we want to calculate for it. So we know how many additional trees need to be planted. But as part of this, we will be making recommendations and goals around community engagement and how engaging the community can help retain trees. We do make recommendations, as has been mentioned, on code updates, code development. So we'll be addressing it from multiple directions, not just saying you need to plant this many trees, but this is ways to maintain the trees you have. This is the way to get more trees in the ground. It takes multiple approaches. So yes, we will.
How will the resilience portion address biodiversity for specific urban wildlife needs?
Well, I can jump in with something real quick. I think, seeing what this team has drafted for an inventory and vulnerability assessment, they specifically talk about a few different kinds of evergreen trees that are resinous or flammable. And, that right there makes me think of which park spaces we need to be looking at that are sort of on the edges of town that would be in that urban wildlife area. Um, and diversify that, evergreens, one example. And then urban wildlife, we're also looking at what type of trees are flowering trees or what type of fruit they produce that can be food and forage. So that definitely comes up all the time when we're planting new trees across town. If that's something that the public desires, then it's something we need to expand our palette. So that's my take. Anything to add, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, we will still be recommending to plant native trees where it's reasonable to plant native trees to support native wildlife. But as Alex said, we're also going to be looking at other tree species that will be more suited to the climate in 50 to 80 years. And those will be flowering trees, fruiting trees, conifers that will also still support wildlife. Those may be more street trees while we try and keep the native trees in parks and open spaces. But it is important to remember that as the climate shifts, those native species that we, know and love in our natural environment will be less suited to survive here as well. So trying to strike that balance is really a part of this. But yeah, we consider that, and our native pollinators are huge and really important to us. So they're not forgotten.
That's all the questions right now.
Can give just another minute or two and see if we get a couple more questions to come in.
Yeah, and really, I think this is what I'm most looking forward to with this planning process is to hear from people. A huge part of our job is to pull up in front of someone's house and either plant new trees for them in the boulevard or take care of their existing trees. Or we're in the park that you look out into in your backyard. So there's really a community involvement here day in, day out. And that's what we want in the planning process too. So this is kind of our big document for the next 10 years. And, we really want to hear those ideas. So it's been a lot of fun to go through this process so far, along with some of the serious notes that we need to address.
All right, we have another question. Will the plan address the loss of trees in new developments in other ways than replanting? In other words, to maintain and keep more of our mature trees?
Yes, we'll make recommendations for ways to maintain trees through development. Nothing in this plan commits the city. They're all options for the city to explore or potentially implement. But we will be making those recommendations and considerations using city codes from other municipalities that are similar to Bozeman in size. We do a benchmarking exercise that compares urban forestry programs across the country, but also like key cities that are very similar to Bozeman. So we look at those and make recommendations based off of what's working in their city for development, mitigation, and retention, as well as other things that have worked for other plans. But it'll eventually be up to the city to decide what's the best course of action and how to implement that.
I'll also add that if folks have creative ideas for incentives, for maintaining those trees, like we'd love to hear that as part of this community engagement process. Well, we might get one and another question here in a bit, or we might not, but I just want to I'll take this opportunity to just thank everyone for being engaged and being here as part of this process. And I think while this was a lot of us just kind of presenting and talking to you, I think future meetings will have more details for you all to start commenting on, and it should be a little more interactive and engaging in our future meetings. But we kind of needed to get this out there first, just to make sure everyone understood the process.
All right, we just had three more questions pop up. Um, all right, the first one, will there be a section in the revised plan for the inclusion of tree care for birds and other wildlife published by the International Society of Arborists? This includes in certification called wildlife trained arborist.
I don't know that it's been discussed amongst the core team if there'll be a full section on that, but we do typically have recommendations similar or small consideration sections, including wildlife, wildfire, water efficient landscaping, and then a lot of times there are recommendations about certifications that the city should pursue or could pursue, similar to that wildlife trained arborist, track assessment. There's WRRQ, which is a new wildfire risk reduction qualification from ISA. So we usually touch on those types of certifications, but we will probably discuss that more in our next coordination meeting.
Okay, you guys are a Montana-based company, so you're familiar with Montana's strong private property laws. Are there examples of codes in other Montana cities that prevent the removal of trees on private property?
I don't have a good answer to that. And I don't know, Matt, if in your comparisons, looking at comparison sittings, if you got that far or went in that direction.
No, we have not yet done the ordinance benchmarking or the city code benchmarking for the Montana cities, but that will be something we're exploring as we go into our next steps. So far, we've only looked at budgets and maintenance and pruning numbers.
But yeah, we will be looking at other cities and their codes and what's worked or not worked in places. And even outside of Montana, there are cities with similar dynamics and views on private property. And so that'll definitely be part of what we look at as we proceed.
All right, next question. Will this plan update include developing specifics of a heritage tree program or just a recommendation to create one?
I think I'll tackle that for starter. We want this consultant team to review and benchmark, right? Make those comparisons with other successful programs they've seen or experienced across the country. I don't think this plan's going to come away with the specifics. I think we have already had that discussion with another process and the historic preservation board with the city. But it's certainly going to be a task for us to at least take items from this management plan and go to our Urban Parks and Forestry Board and make this something to complete. We've heard, I think, loud and clear from the public that this is something we need to develop. And, we need a bit more detail and a little more legwork, but it's not something we're going to drop.
There are no more questions at this time.
All right, well, we're about at the end of the hour, so I think we can probably wrap this up. There's no more questions in.
Well, I just want to extend that gratitude as well. Josh mentioned, thanking everyone for attending, and yeah, keep clued in on Engage Bozeman for the rest of our schedule, and yeah, more opportunities on their way.
Okay,
Thanks, everyone.
thank you.
Everyone.
Thanks, everyone.